cannot understand the significance of what's going to happen next week unless you begin to understand how we got to this place. And the story begins on November 29th, 1947 with the Partition Resolution. The UN voted to create a Jewish state, an Arab state, and what was then known as Palestine, but Jerusalem was going to remain an international city. And of course, at the instant of our state's birth, 6 Arab armies invaded. Israeli forces were able to hold on to the western part of the city, but Jordanian troops took the eastern part of the city, including our holiest sites in the old city, the Kotel. And while Israel declared the western part of its city its capital, Jordan unilaterally annexed the eastern part of the city, an annexation recognized only by Great Britain and by Pakistan. But the United States, which had signed on to the Partition Resolution, kept up the myth that Jerusalem was going to be an international city. And that is why the U.S. Embassy was built in Tel Aviv. And for the next 19 years, when the Prime Minister of Israel wanted to meet with the American ambassador, he had to go to Tel Aviv. The American ambassador simply refused to come to this city and meet with the Prime Minister of Israel. When Israel had its annual Yom Ha'atzmaut, Independence Day parade right up here, the American ambassador would never, ever attend. And that was the situation until June 7th, 1967, when the IDF reunited the city, when the paratroopers reached the Kotel. And a month later, the Israeli government voted to annex the eastern part of the city and reunite our eternal capital. Yes. The United States didn't recognize it. The embassy remained in Tel Aviv. And beyond that, the United States determined that any building by the State of Israel over what the United States called the 1967 lines was an illicit building, and under certain administrations, an illegal building. So if Israel built an addition, I don't know, for handicapped people around the Kotel, that was building in a settlement. If Israel built in Gilo, which no Israelis considered a settlement, a balcony, it was considered settlement building. The myth was that the United States would continue to adhere to this notion of Jerusalem as an international city until such a time as Israelis and Jordanians could sit at the negotiating table and determine the final status of the city. And that myth pertained until September 1993 and the signing of the Oslo Accords. Suddenly, American policy changed from wanting to determine the status of the city through Jordanian-Israeli negotiations. Now the negotiations between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, and its later iteration, the Palestinian Authority. But the American policy of considering any building over those 67 lines persisted. And during my period as ambassador, from 2009 to 2014, it reached a zenith, or if you will, a nadir. Not a single brick. Not a single brick was American policy during those days. And I was summoned to the State Department. That is not invited, that's summoned. You do not want to be summoned if you're an ambassador anywhere. And I was excoriated repeatedly every time Israel built anything in areas of Jerusalem in which the majority of the Jewish population of this city lives. 600,000 Jews in the city live over what they were calling the 67 lines. I was summoned to the State Department to be dressed down for the demolitions, get this, of 2 outhouses illegally built in French Hill. 2 outhouses. And the situation was created that Jews could only build legally in certain parts of the city, whereas Arabs could build anywhere in the city, including illegally. And if Israel tried to demolish illegally built structures, we were excoriated and condemned for illegally demolishing buildings. And my line to the State Department was always that your policy, U.S. policy, was prejudicial. I hesitated to use a stronger word because in no other city, certainly in the United States, would Jews be prohibited from building in certain neighborhoods, much less a city that has been holy to them for 3,000 years and their capital. No country, no city in the United States of America. So the policy was prejudicial, and frankly, it was inapplicable. It was mad. Mad. And so, next week, when we cut that ribbon on inaugurating America's embassy in Jerusalem, keep in mind what it's been for the last 70 years. Deeply prejudicial to Israel and the Jewish people. Inapplicable, and frankly at times insane. And that there is now an end to this madness, that we've reached a new day where the United States, our most important and valued and cherished ally, is recognizing our united capital, is a great historical event. Last word. As an historian, I have a very difficult time predicting the past. So what's going to happen tonight at 9 o'clock Israel time, I'm not going to speculate. Though there is a front page item in the New York Times right now. And let me say just this, also from a historic perspective, that the United States of America, under this administration, has stood by Israel and defended this region and the world and America against the great threat posed by an Iran with a nuclear program. Is a source of great appreciation for the people of Israel, for the Jewish people worldwide, and I'll only can say a preemptive Todah Rabah. Thank you very much.